Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to another event at MSK Innovations. I'm TJ Halverson at the DeAngelis Group. We are excited for another great event here this afternoon. We have three really interesting companies lined up for you today and registrants from actually 10 countries around the world. So this is truly becoming an international event. We're really excited to host you all wherever you may be located. Today on our panel, we have Chris Lyons, Bill Rhoda, and Chance Leonard. Great distinguished panel to answer and ask many questions after each presentation. I'm going to give a moment to Chris, Bill, and Chance to each introduce yourselves.
Sure. Thanks, TJ and Drew. Excited to see you guys. Excited to know that the audience is out there. Hopefully we're breaking new records, TJ. Basically, just to give you guys a quick rundown, I run Southern Metrics Consulting. Everything that we focus on is business lifecycle management through M&A. That includes painfully fundraising, but nonetheless, it's necessary.
Thanks, Chris. And thank you for joining again. Bill?
Hi, Bill Rhoda. Thanks again for having me. Excited to see everybody today. So I'm Bill Rhoda. I'm a general partner at Runway Healthcare, which is a venture studio. And also we have, with venture studio, meaning that we have a fund and then also an incubator inside of that fund. And I'm also on the team that helps run those portfolio companies through that incubator day in and day out as well. And I've kind of been mostly on the management but product development side of the medtech business.
Great. Thanks again for joining us, Bill. Yeah. Last but not least, Chance.
Thank you, TJ. Thank you, Drew. And welcome everybody to tonight's MSK pitch event. It's my 31st year in the medical device industry, and I currently serve as the Chief Executive Officer of Genesis Innovation Group. And we are a medtech development company starting at ideation, going all the way through commercialization and creating acquisitions.
Great. Thanks, Chance. Now, before we jump into the first presentation, just a quick disclaimer. MSK Innovations is not a broker, dealer, nor an investment advisor. This is for informational purposes only, not to be considered investment advice. Conduct your own due diligence before making an investment. With that, Rodrigo at Bioreplica, kick us off.
Thank you very much. Let's share the presentation. Do you see it all? Well,
here we go.
Thank you very much. As you know, the spine can be a target of many conditions and diseases. Who doesn't know someone who is in pain and disability even after a spine surgery? We are aware that form follows function, as just like the hip or knee implant mimic the structure they replace, we are supposed to see the same pattern on vertebral prostheses. Sadly, this happened not to be the case. We see devices that are outdated and don't mimic nature as they should. So, why is this the case? Well, let's keep this question in mind because today we are here to show you the first human-like vertebral prosthesis in the world. But before that, let's delve a little bit into some global data. Let's focus our attention into osteoporotic fractures, as they account up to 50% of all fractures, creating a heavy burden both in the economical and healthcare system worldwide, with up to 8.9 million cases recorded annually. Just in 2022, the amount of money in cost related to this pathology was around $4.5 billion between USA and Europe. And having into consideration the cost of rehospitalization in the USA of around $100,000, the growing rate of 1% yearly from this year to 2050, and the proper underdiagnosis of this pathology, we can say without any shred of doubt that this is a threat and a danger for the future. Of course, over the years, many devices have been developed trying to provide a solution for this condition. Sadly, they usually rely on systems and forms that are really close to each other, and they, for this case, share common flaws. For example, they lack any natural movement because of their shape. As you may see in the image, they are really stiff models that are bound together through rails, through a process called spinal fusion, that bound together many levels of the spine in order to create protection while reducing movement. This is a one-size-fits-all model, so we don't have any adaptation or personalized part for the patient, and doesn't allow a proper curvature of the spine and how the body usually manages forces in a daily basis. And the most important part of all is there is no instant protection of the spinal cord, and there is no protection by the prosthesis itself in cases we don't have the natural part still together. This means that if we don't have the vertebral arc still intact, we cannot protect the spinal cord by itself. We have to limit movement. So, having all of this into consideration, let us present you today our invention. What you are seeing here is a full body replacement of a vertebrae. After removing the affected level and adjacent disc, we are able to set in place the intervertebral devices and our prosthesis. Thanks to its two-part design, we can go around those sensitive structures without harming them, and then set it in place together, creating a more complex yet mobile system. This kind of intervention is not out of mind. We have based our intervention on the data shared by the Seattle Science Foundation that is public, and you can check it on YouTube whenever you want. Well, welcome to Bioreplica. Our design, ergonomic yet simple, is based on a 3D printed design and production, which allow us a better and more personalized product for each patient and a more adaptable system for the forces, thanks to its shock absorption system, which allow us a better transition of the forces while doing daily based tasks. Of course, thanks to this design, we are able to protect those sensitive structures, as you may see, by the reproduction of nature. With this design, we have been able to be awarded internationally in just 2 years up to 5 times, with awards of the level of the Best Spanish Invention Award, the Francisco García Caballerizo Award, the Gold Medal by the WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, as Best Invention in the World in the Geneva Convention on 2023. And not long ago, we have been awarded with a bronze medal for Best Spine Invention by the Orthopaedic This Week site as one of the most promising spine technologies on 2024. That with that, we are on the same league as the best and most innovative technologies in the world. As well as we have been able to create interest not only from agents, but from companies all over the world to be able to collaborate with us in the near future. Our system and our business model is simple yet focused. We don't want to produce, manufacture, and distribute this kind of product. We want to create corporate license once we proven through a specialized CRO the clinical base with enough clinical data that is able to provide from us to the customer a product then for them to develop in the clinical and human trials. We have been able to confirm through our market studies that preclinical phase are enough in order to share and license this kind of product. Right now, we have a Spanish patent granted, and we are on the way and really close to obtain both USA and Europe patent. And we are on the contact with NAMSA, with a world-renowned CRO, to establish and develop our clinical trials. As just said, our focus are the big companies in the world and agents. As we understand, they are able to obtain more benefits from our technology and put it in the hands of many patients, as they hand the resources, the network, and most of all, the trust of the people. nowadays we have contacts and we are in the talks with a possible collaboration of a national level orthopedic company here in Spain. As for a non-disclosure agreement, I cannot share. Our team, yet small, is focused on our task. We have been able to develop a really proper business plan, as well as in-depth market study that has shown us how much potential has this invention, as well as collaborations with accelerator programs such as the Science and Innovation League Office, the University of Las Palmas de Gran Canaria, and many other little acceleration in a local level, and the possibility to get into European and national level programs, as well as being in contact with many agents all over the world, from the USA and America in general, and Europe, and in most cases, Asia. Our timeline is also focused, yet simple. Our objective is to structure a really good and firm fundraising in order to be able to develop these preclinical trials, as most of our money and investment will be focused on the development of the master device files in order to provide it for our customers, while we also do parallelly our patent in the USA and Europe. As for our investment, we have already signed $200,000 and a little bit more in a smaller investment, and we have already verbally compromised 450 more with the option of amplifying to 200K more, to around $850. Our goal is go around $1.2 million, or euros in this case, and we are also open to have public fund help in this case, the ENISA platform in Spain, and we are also open to smaller minimal tickets of 500,000 euros. With this, we are able to be in place of a special area in the Canary Islands, where we are located, called the Special Canary Zone, where you can get, as an investor, advantages in the fiscal and tax area. For this is an area especially established for investors in research and development. With all of this in mind, we would like to thank you and invite you together to the future.
Thanks, Rodrigo. Great presentation. I couldn't imagine giving a pitch in my second language. So well done. Thank you so much for
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I'll open it up to our great panel here for some questions.
So do you guys, do you acquire the images to make the personalized implants? Personalization is a big term today, and it's becoming more and more popular across the board. Doesn't really matter what the anatomy is as it relates to musculoskeletal. But are you guys taking a CT and receiving that and then actually creating the implant from it?
We have planned to be a design that is able to be put it in the hospitals, at the very least to have a standard shape of the vertebrae, to have one of each one. We are now focused on a standard model of L3, L4, but we are not limited to it. And then for the hospital to reproduce it with the data of the patient, knowing that the differences between sizes are not that very much. With that, we also cover the possibility that right now the technology cannot be that personalized, even though we have the design. So we can produce it in more quantities, but with little difference between each other. But we are, at the very least, are copying nature.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So
I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. One question I just had was, where exactly are you in the development? Have you designed prototypes and kind of had kind of cadaver labs and kind of fitted it out that way, or just didn't see exactly where you were in the development of it?
Well, I am sad to say that we are in a really early stage of the development, because we have everything aligned. We have the talks with NAMSA. We have their professional really invested in our project. We have contact from neurologists, even from Canada, that they are invested in being in the project. But where we are lacking is the most sad say to think out loud for this project. We are lacking money.
Gotcha.
It's sad to say,
Yeah.
but it's the truest thing to say. We are lacking the money to start the domino chain effect, but we have already think about all the steps in the way, but we here in Spain, we are not exactly promoted in that way, so we are lacking funds, but we are hoping to get it really soon. These days, we have an agent working on that investment.
Okay. And then have you developed out the instrumentation as well to insert and implant the device?
The instrumentation is based on what is already developed. If the technique and the instruments are what is already in the market, we will not need many specialization for the surgeries. Mm-hmm. So as you have seen in the video, the technique is mostly a posterior corpectomy. You can check in the science in the Seattle Science Foundation. First of all, not bound to Seattle Science Foundation. It's something is open, so just in case, not to have any problem. But you have just to replace the implant that is already established without any other change and put it together with a screw that is already established. There is no possible way to have a problem there. And our surfaces are adapted to any kind of intervertebral device. So you can print it to adapt to any other intervertebral device that the surgeon might like.
Thank you.
So I congratulate you, Rodrigo. I think, at least from the start, you win the BHAG award, right? There's a book that was written by Jim Collins here, and this phraseology that came about the big, hairy, audacious goal. And I don't know that any other company has actually attempted something of this nature. So it's enabling, but it seems to be, somewhat conceptual in nature at this point in time. What do you see regarding the regulatory hurdles in order to get approval both in the EU and the US?
Well, we have been able to do our background check in that line. We have been studying these kind of things. We know that it's a fully invasive technology, so it's a type 3 because we are surrounded by dangerous structure, as we have said, the spinal cord. And from the data we have been able to see for other kind of development and FDA regulations, we can have an estimation of the size and processes of around 2.5 years of follow-up. And after that is mainly the follow-up. That's why we wouldn't want to get to that point, because I think we won't have the resources and the backbone to support it. And I think based on our data, it's easier to propose an early stage device on an early stage product, and for other companies already with the experience and the infrastructure and the personnel to do so, for them to follow it up. As for today, this kind of mentality of business plan, as for my contact with the USA, it has been really good, have a really good reception.
Okay.
Rodrigo, have you had any conversations thus far with the FDA around classification and pathway? I know you mentioned, the amount of time it's going to take post-study for follow-up, but do you have any specific guidance from the FDA at this point?
From the FDA itself, no, because we are really far from that point, but we have checked all the documentation that is online, and you can check for which is the classification. Actually, I have a doubt because I have many opinions where this kind of device is considered 2B, but actually from what I have seen is actually 3, type 3. It's kind of messy in this line because I don't know if the guide is outdated, but what we have seen is for the preclinical trials to be around 2.5 years, and the follow-up after the surgery can be from 2.5 years to another 3. So a process between 4 years, 4.5, maybe 5. In any case, you have to practice more. I don't think so, but that's on the data we have in this early stage, and we will have to work better with professionals and assessors.
Great. Well, thank you. We are excited for the future, and it requires people to be audacious. And that's why we want to have you here and get some of these questions worked out and supported. Thank you so much again for presenting. With that, let's move on to our next presenter here, Frank at POWEHI.
Yeah, give me a sec. So I hope everyone can see it.
Yes.
I'm very excited to introduce you POWEHI Medical. And as you can already see on the right picture, we're dealing with posterior spinal fixation, or better said, pedicle screw fixation. I skip over this slide. That's our CYA slide. If you look on the current market and you see pedicle screw systems and you figure out that most of the systems are pre-assembled. Pre-assembled means the screws and the heads are one unit. And if you want to keep up with all the different treatment options as a company, you need to provide a very large screw portfolio. So sometimes you even see 500, 600 different screw types on the market for one company. And if you want to equip one surgeon, you need to have several screws of one type, so it all multiplies, and there's substantial capital involved to have one surgery go. And also, this limits sort of the innovation adding to the system, because this requires another, maybe double or triple of the portfolio if you want to add something. And that's our opportunity, because we developed a pedicle screw system that has not those restrictions, because that's modular. So screws and heads are separate components. And this gives us the flexibility to implement some real innovation in the pedicle screw market segment. And I would like to show you what we did in the past. So first of all, we came up with a cool name, KUDOS. This is how we called our pedicle screw system. It basically consists of the pedicle anchors, the clip-on heads, the rods. Once it's mounted, fully fixed, you have a fusion segment as displayed here. Is there anything new about screws? What we can do about? And I say yes, there are some aspects that can be improved. For example, we came up with a unique cutting fluid in the pedicle thread region to avoid splay fractures in future. Furthermore, we thought about, well, can we improve the driver connection? So we modified the Torx and instrument connection. We included some introduction chamfers to have a self-orienting, self-centering Torx, but still having the same strength of the Torx connection. So it's better for minimal invasive insertion. We also have a 3D printed screw to promote bone-on graft, and 3D printing can actually use for much more. So we have some cement valves in there to have application with cement more safe in future. The clip-on heads also have a variety. First of all, they receive rods from 50 to 60 millimeters. The easy standard head, what we see on the left-hand side, is a pole-axial connection. Then if you want to manipulate your vertebral body, you have the option of clicking on a monoaxial head. It maintains your angle. And if you need to have a little bit more freedom to your treatment, and you need to adjust the angle and do then the manipulation of the vertebral body, we have the temporary locking screw, which is also kind of unique to the market. All those heads will come in certain or in different length options, break-off ears, reduction ears, that's the second, and then also fully featured minimal invasive clip-on heads. So this was an accelerated overview of the pedicle screw system. And there's something else we came up with, and that's what we call the TANTO anchor. If you look on the lumbar spine, for example, here, you insert the screw, you have a very weak bone like osteoporosis, you insert the screw, And what you see is that the pedicle channel, it's not round, it's oval. So there's still some space, and in some cases, the screws can lose by toggling. And we came up with a TANTO anchor that actually uses the full cross section of the pedicle. You still have the screw component, as you can see it, but this additional blade or paddle around it gives you more contact to the cortical bone region for a better load transfer from the implant through the spine. And also the other effect is, if you look top view, compared screws and the paddle, you see you have a way larger surface in the front, and both effects of this direct cortical contact in the pedicle region and in the frontal region, you have a much higher stability against toggling, and you reach similar values with the cementless anchor compared to a cemented screw. So we measured 50% more stability in toggling. The system also comes with a whole bunch of instruments. Just to show off, I show you the most complex arrangement. And this is all to not getting stuck in the niche with our product. No, we are actually addressing 100% of the market. And to realize this, we made all the instruments to treat degen, spondy, MIS, fractures, and so on. Where are we compared to the competition? Well, we had a little data matrix. We sketched it. We have the function over treatment options or number of innovation steps over the capital efficiency or level of modularity. And you can see that 3/4 of the market is distributed like this. Majority of systems on the market are non-modular, so you have the pre-assembled systems, and this also limits the way of innovation or incorporating something new in there. And already today we can range ourselves in the upper right corner, so very innovative and also very effective with the part, or with the modularity. Business strategy, we actually call it the dual focus. First of all, we win new customers with the highest degree of innovation for pedicle screws, for example, with a unique cementless option to treat compromised bone. Or if the surgeon still wants to use bone cement, they can use our 3D printed screws with the security valves that they steer the cement during the injection. And once we have the new customer, we will certainly amaze the customer and adopt them, because we have the full product range with all the stuff we've just shown to treat deformities, degeneration, and fractures. And then it's a matter to repeat everything. And then also modularity is key, because we don't need so much of a capital to equip all the sets. And this is pretty good for revenue scaling. Numbers. If we stay to our example here, we have an average selling price for this construct of $13,000. Manufacturing, it's $900, and we have a gross margin through all the components of more than 90%. Projected business case, we think we can start entering the market early 26 next year with 10 sets, and then ramp up surely but slowly. And we think that we can reach the break even in 2028 once we crack the 20 million market, or 20 million mark. There's actually a little bit more behind it. What I've shown is the basis system. We anticipate FDA submission in May this year. We're currently busy with manufacturing, followed by testing. Next will be then, in addition to the system, with a midline system. Then several components need to be added to complete the system. And then 3D printing has its own spot as a project, because the sterile packaging seems to be mandatory for this sort of product. The core team, hardworking, very experienced team, R&D focus, because we develop, we push everything to market. The team needs to grow. It needs to be added with marketing and also sales power very soon. Our IP portfolio, we went a little wild with this. So we have more than 50 international patent applications, 16 already granted. Just a snapshot of what's there. You maybe see it also in the background. What we are looking for is still, this company is self-financed. So We are bootstrapped till now, and to have things speed up and also enable us the scaling and entrance for the market, we need to have financial support. And we thought about 2 milestones. One milestone would be to bring us beyond the FDA approval and enable us to first launch for the first 10 sets, and then also adding to the team sales power, marketing power, and so on. And then the second set would be a little bit higher, that we can perform the scaling and also education. And then with the second tranche, we should be able to also reach then the break-even point. Yeah, I'm very grateful for the session and for the opportunity to have it presented over here. If someone of you is interested and has more details to know and more questions, please feel free to enter our fresh and shiny webpage, which is just released. Also, write an email, establish contact, we exchanged NDA, and we can speak in more detail. And I think we have then a few minutes to have some gentle questions, maybe. So, right.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. That's good. I had a real quick question. I saw the COGS relative to the total construct of 13,000 ASP. What does that construct entail for the 13,000 ASP versus the 900 COGS?
Yes. So very good question, because we have incorporated a lot of different components in there. The cheapest component would be the regular pedicle screw, polyaxial screw with a screw shank. We can manufacture those for $45 to $50 as a combo. And average selling price, there's even literature out there. We can read the average selling price for spinal products for screws, and that's $850. So that means you have here 90-95% margin. And we extrapolated a little bit because you have the rods incorporated, you have the little set screws, and then also those TANTO anchors. So we took 4 TANTO anchors into this equation, which could then run as a specialized product, and usually can charge more for those. And I went then to the maximum number for this, what is published. But margin overall is way beyond 90%.
Thank you. The other question I had relative to the chart you showed was I noticed a 10% royalty rate that looked like it was in your model. Is that going toward, what's that go to? Is that towards physicians and physician involvement, or is that towards university, or a mixture of both?
That's to be negotiated. So it's a space holder.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah,
appreciate the presentation. I had a curious side, as you know, because building all of the sets as you are looking at, even though you've got great COGS, to put sets out into hospitals across the world, is very expensive to do. It seems to me that one of your best value propositions is the TANTO screw, which is solving a clinical problem. Have you considered utilizing that to enter the market first, or do you feel like you need to have all of the other commodity pedicle screws just to be able to compete?
That is a very interesting point, and that's why we did all the effort to add the entire system around the TANTO anchor, because we thought, well, let's start with the TANTO anchor, right? We went into discussion with some companies, we raised a lot of interest, but to implement it somewhere else, that's a different story. So therefore, we had then our own system, and once we started with the own system, we thought, let's be better than what's out there, and to have then a real comprehensive story, and being competitive, even with your bread and butter implants, also instruments. It's not my first pedicle screw system I'm designing. So that's why I also know that sometimes you go through several evolution steps with your instruments. And we started actually with the most complex arrangement, with the complex deformities, for example, and then went to the easy stuff. So we have now all the interfaces compatible, cross over through the entire instrument setting. So this will be also cost saving, but it will be a lot more fun for a surgeon once they figure out, oh gosh, everything fits together like Lego, and you just need to have a higher number of reduction towers, for example, to do the same thing as, you know, for the more complex stuff.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Frank. A couple of questions. One, it said you're looking for a $5 million investment, but I don't know if I missed it. Did you say what valuation that was going to be?
The evaluation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so not sure if we should, you know, have an NDA up front with this.
No worries.
But it's 2-digit and it's free money.
Okay. And then, you know, it looks like you're looking to get the approvals and commercialize this on your own. Is that in the U.S. and OUS or starting with?
No, we focus on the United States first, and in the first years only. Going to Europe, it's a little bit tricky with your CE mark. You need to have your clinical data. Well, during the first, you know, market entrance, we collected data and we could use it to file a CE mark. But then it's a pricing matter if you still, should enter the market, if it's really paying off. That's why I'm a little bit hesitating. And that's also the reason why we have a second office near Boston to have then, you know, the distance, proximity to the market, surgeons, and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I agree with the others. I think that the TANTO anchor is probably the most unique, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't stop there. We have so many more ideas. But we have only, sorry, TJ, 10 minutes, right? So
yeah.
We're good.
And just real quick, so I wasn't sure, is the cemented screw 3D printed, but the other screws that don't have that cement are not?
They also have the option to be cannulated, fenestrated, so you can use bone cement off-label states, of course, right?
Sure.
But with the printed screw, we might have the option of having, you know, avoid that the cement doesn't approach the anterior tip. Yep. You can still put this K-wire through it, but the valves are produced. I can show you in more detail if you're interested. It's a very crazy fluid dynamics incorporated in that. And you can only realize by printing. So we thought, well, let's not just do in rough surface or any lattice structure. Everybody can do it, right? So that's why we made something, of need in there.
Great, thanks.
Great. Any other questions from our panel or in the chat? Okay. All right. We'll move on. Thank you again, Frank. Great presentation.
Sure.
To wrap things up today, we have Sean Cogan at Tesa Medical. Sean, take it away.
Thanks, TJ. I'm just sharing the screen now. Let me know when this comes up.
It's there.
It's there. Beautiful. Thank you. So thanks, TJ and Drew, for the opportunity today, and well done to the other two presenters today. It was some pretty cool technology there to see. So at Tesa Medical, our focus is to enable surgeons to precisely tension and fixate soft tissue ligament repairs with a focus on starting in the knee. And our goal is really to make surgical precision easy and accessible for surgeons. This is a really big picture I was told the other day of quite an ugly head. But anyway, essentially what it tells you is I've spent a lot of time in downstream sales and marketing in sports medicine. And the part of the world that I live in is on the other side of the world, down under. And had a lot of experience with a lot of teams and a lot of building great teams and working with a lot of surgeons. So had a lot of fun on the journey. For those who aren't familiar with ACL surgery, it's actually one of the most studied, most highest performed surgeries in sports medicine. It's a real cornerstone for a lot of sports and knee surgeons, but it is quite nuanced and it's quite challenging. When you look at the literature, there's definitely room for improvement. The return to prior level of activity is around 40%. In some patient groups, it's even higher. There's reports in the literature of around about 30% of patients having an unstable knee after having a reconstruction, and the revision rates still stay around about 10%. And in some of the more challenging patient groups, particularly younger patient groups, this can actually be up around about 20 to 30%, which is really a cascade towards arthritis and problems down the line. When you look at the data, the current and you look at the current standard of care, the traditional method is to use feel and essentially pull as hard as you can pull on an ACL graft to reset tension. What we know from the data and the preliminary pilot data that we've conducted is that everyone's max pull is different, and everyone's max pull effort patient to patient is also different. So there's some real variability when it comes to this part of the procedure, and this is really the finishing stage. It's the point where you're getting the painters in to finish the job, and you want to make sure that this is done right, because this is essentially restoring the stability of the knee. What we've done with our development partners is develop a novel and elegant solution that essentially creates a third hand for the surgeon. It enables objectivity with the actual tensioning procedure. And what we know in all life is that if you've got data, you can measure something and you can identify if there's a problem. And this is really the blind spot when it comes to surgery. As you can see in the animation, this is one of our earlier generation products, but essentially once the Tesa tensioning device is attached to the graft, the surgeon can go hands-free. In a tertiary institution where you might have fellows and registrars, you can probably get away with this. But if you're in a facility where you either don't have great help or don't have help, this can be quite challenging. And we know surgeons like to manage risk, and they like to control things. And essentially, what we've put in to development is a device and a concept that allows them to really control and precisely dial in the final stages of the procedure, and essentially see what they're going to get before they've deployed their fixation device. You know, tensioning and tensioners aren't new concepts when it comes to sports medicine. They've been around for many years. But what sets us apart is that we've got something that's really compact and really easy. And obviously there's a big move in orthopedics and spine into enabling technology, and that's really what Tesa is. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, we free the surgeon's hands. They can objectively cycle and assess the stability of the knee. We give them an ability to measure and set tension independently for grafts and augments. And looking at the literature, as well as just what's happening within the surgeon community, a lot of them are looking to adopt augmentation or bracing techniques. And there's a real concern about getting the tension relationship incorrect in that. And then finally, obviously, the surgeon has complete control. They can choose, they can change the tension, and they can ultimately see the final outcome before they have deployed their fixation devices. And given that in the US, around about 70% of ACLs are done using BTB, where interference screws are used, this enables them to really dial it in and see what they're going to get before they deploy their fixation device. In terms of our business model, you know, we're working to have a fully disposable tensioner packaged with our proprietary fixation devices. A couple of our guiding principles through our development have been that we're here to enable surgeons. We're not here to hem them into a specific fixation style or a specific graft type. So we've set this up so that the surgeon has complete control over their choice of graft, their choice of fixation style. And really what we're doing is we're fitting into this final stage of the operation and really just trying to help them dial it in and get the best outcome they can for their patients. You know, obviously sports is a little bit different to total joints, trauma, and some of the other markets where there's a lot of players. In sports, there's a couple of really big players, and then there's a number of other players who are active in the space. And we really fit in with all of these in a lot of respects, in that we're really enabling the ability to do this well. And what sets us apart is, as we validated through our cadaver labs and our development process, is the ability to free the surgeon's hands. And a lab that we performed down here in Sydney last week, with some surgeons who are not related to the company prior, they really saw the power of this, and the comments that they both made was that they feel that this is actually going to save them time during the procedure because of the functionality. As we said, we enable choice of fixation and graft, and our goal is to have a procedural kit that ultimately makes life easy for the ASCs, makes it easy for the sales reps, as well as the customers and the surgeon customers. We've got a clear development pipeline over the next couple of years. Towards the end of this quarter, start of next quarter, we'll actually make an alpha launch of our MVP platform, both here in Australia and New Zealand prior to the US, and then we'll follow not long after through our surgeon advisory group that we've got assembled in the US. There's some very favorable regulatory pathways down in New Zealand and as well as Australia that allows us to get this in the hands of some clinicians, get some early data, and start validating what we believe we've got in this enabling technology. Later in the year, we plan to launch our second generation tensioner, which will really align with the augmentation and bracing concept and enable the dual independent tensioning with some novel fixation concepts that allow a single point of fixation. And ultimately, we're gearing towards having a fully digital solution that will be presenting both digital readouts for the tension, the angle of the joint as you cycle through range of motion, and the tool itself will be Bluetooth enabled, so it can connect with the screen and graphically represent what's going on. There's a belief as well within the surgeon group and our team that we've got an ability here to also provide data outside of just ACL, but also in multi-ligament, MPFL, and other procedures as well. So we can really help inform the surgeons about what's going on in the knee. As I said earlier, ACL is one of the big markets when it comes to sports medicine, particularly from a procedural volume. The US is obviously the focus. It's the largest segment of revenue globally. The rest of the world provides an opportunity as well to really test things out. So it's a nice cornerstone market. And as I mentioned earlier, our launch platform will support procedures all around the knee, not just ACL. The way we've designed the tool enables this to be done very easily, and the fixation devices that we've got work well for those procedures such as MPFL and extra-articular. So the platform also, over time, we know will be able to expand into other joints within the body. So the actual total addressable market can become a lot bigger just based on decision-making around how we expand. In terms of our team, I'm pleased to be joined by Tom Vale as our Chief Medical Officer. We managed to sort that out. Tom's been connected with the company for the past 4 or 5 years, so he's got a lot of history. We've got two great development partners, Core Medical Ventures, based out of San Diego, and Savvy Medical, who are developing our software platform, which will present the data, but also capture the data post, so that we can get a sense of what tension surgeons are setting, as well as how patients are performing against those key metrics of return to play, return to sport, and failure rates. We've been fortunate to build a really impressive world-class scientific advisory board. We've got 9 active sports surgeons within this group who work at some of the big institutions across the US. They all work with professional teams, college teams, and high school athletes. So they as well as the weekend warriors. So they've got some real insights into this and some real commercialization experience as well. We also have Bill Walsh, who is located in my part of the world and is a prolific publisher of data and has helped many companies with their 510K, PMAs, etc. And the access to Bill is incredible when it comes to our ability to quickly address the questions that everyone asks around optimal tensioning, what's going on, and how our system's actually working. In terms of our launch, the focus is the US. Down under, we get an ability to learn, we get an ability to build data, particularly on graft types that are less common in the US, such as hamstrings, etc. But ultimately, we'll take a regional focus in our launch, and our SAB is predominantly based in San Francisco and then around that New York City tri-state area. So that'll be our early focus. We will hire a couple of direct regional managers to help us get going, but we'll ultimately leverage the independent sales agent network and leveraging our surgeon advisory group and their contacts is the plan that we'll take to drive this forward. So we're definitely not reinventing the wheel here. In fact, we're just trying to follow the footsteps of others who've done this really well in the past and hope that we can have some sort of semblance of their success. Currently, we're closing out a seed round, so we've been raising under a convertible note for the bit over the past 12 months. We've actually got a good run on at the moment, but through that raise, we've managed to work through 4 design cycles with a real focus on making this easy. We're obviously changing an element of surgery that many surgeons don't believe there's a problem with, but once you give them a tool that fits in their hand and is easy to work with, it's very quick how we've seen the change of engagement. We've also developed a nice little IP wallet, and that will be expanded on further as we continue to develop, particularly towards the digital tools and some of the applications. We're working to close this seed round by the end of this month with the goal of then going into our Series A, which is really about enabling us to then commercialize and drive this product into market. So as I said, we, in terms of the opportunity for anyone who's interested, we've currently got about 1.1 million remaining on the convertible note, but I can confirm we've got $500,000 of that already circled with documents being completed and investment currently underway. So there's really about 600K left at the moment, and this is helping us to close out these milestones that some of them we've come through, and others such as submitting the FDA or making the FDA submissions, as well as doing a small run for our early commercialization and first in human data will enable. It's very favorable terms. The investors who came in December 23, this is the same term for those who are coming in now. So it's a good deal for anyone coming in now, as we've gone a long way to validating and de-risking. This is just a grab from our June labs performed at UCSF with our surgeon advisory, and the tool is a lot easier to use now in terms of loading, but this really highlights the hands-free functionality and what the surgeons are able to achieve with this, and an ability to really dial the tension back in as collagens stretches and suture relaxes. But ultimately, we believe we've got a solution here that can really enable surgeons, can make their life easier, give them a better ability to objectively dial these procedures in and not have to compromise on things such as graft type, technique, procedural techniques and approach, etc. So so really appreciate the opportunity, TJ, and I'm ready to be grilled by the panel. So thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Panel, let's grill him with the remaining time we have here.
Hey, remember, panel, he asked for it, right?
Absolutely.
Hey, Sean, that's good stuff. Hey, just real quick, what is the tool, the tensioner, what's the COGS today versus what you expect it to be as you scale?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Chris. So, we're going to start with some machined reusable tools just to get the data going. As I mentioned, we've got a software component here, so it's really nice. It gives us the ability to start capturing that real world data, what people are doing. Those reusable tools are around about $2,000 fully kitted out. They're about to get a run those done. But once we go to injection, and part of that also helps us to confirm that the designs we've got work in human, because obviously we know cadaver bone's a little bit different and different graft types can present with some different challenges. So we just want to get that right before we cook the molds. What we've spec'd out is that it'll be around about $80 for a fully disposable analog device. As it turns out as well, based on the work we've also done on the digital tool, once you start removing the number of components that are there today, and you start building in strain gauges and different things like that, the costs are fairly similar. So even going through that evolution, it's fairly similar. And just in terms of the way that the core team have done their development, they've done an amazing job. That dual analog tool, which is part of our stage 2, essentially we only have to cook 2 more molds to do that device. So we're really focused on being efficient with the design and trying to keep down some of those capex costs and get to a good price point.
Okay, so once you get to the Bluetooth tool, where is the physical readout? Is it going to be on the device itself, or is it where?
Yeah, so we'll have 2 readouts. So there'll be a physical readout on the device. You'll have 2 tension values that you'll be able to see because there's 2 individual tensioners on there. We really want to be able to enable surgeons around this augmentation internal bracing, as well as enable them just with their standard current techniques. You'll also get a display of the angle that the joint is at, so that you'll be able to see what's actually happening through range of motion. So you can check things like isometry, but also you can know what angle the joint is at when you fixate, which is something that surgeons currently use today to address the actual tension within the construct. The Bluetooth-enabled device will connect to another device within the theatre, being it the screen or laptop, iPad, that sort of thing. That will then give you a heads-up display. Our goal is to get to a heads-up display with it. And ultimately, the way we're designing it is that you'll get all the data you'd need in the handpiece, but we're going to give you some really cool data on a screen. And particularly if you're doing a multi-ligament procedure where you've got potentially 2 tensioners working, you can see how they interrelate through range of motion and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you. That's good.
Really great presentation, Sean. Enjoyed that. I'm kind of curious on a couple of things. So I think definitely your problem statement for surgeons is consistency, right? And then knowing exactly where it is that they get the attention to. At the end of the day, every company has to be able to create the product, then make the product, which you've already done both of those stages, but now you got to sell it. When you come to the selling aspect of this, a lot of these procedures are being done in surgeon-owned facilities, and they may have agreements here in the United States with larger entities. How do you, I can see that there's a possibility that say, hey, I want to use the tensioner, but I don't want to use your interference screws. How do you plan to deal with that scenario?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Chance. So at a core basis, obviously the tool will be disposable, and we may even make some decisions to have a hybrid model where they get the dock, which is we've designed it so the dock actually clips in, clips off, and then you can have a reusable tool. So it gives us an ability to package differently. It also gives us an ability to go from about $80 COG to $30 COG fully packaged for that. So we can give us a bit of flex. To answer your question, part of what we're doing through our FDA and our product commercialization process is every product will be packaged separately, and then we'll package it within the kit. So we'll have flexibility. We know that the tension is the bit that they get really excited about. And as you said, some of these facilities do have relationships that are much bigger than the tensioner. So we've given ourselves flexibility that we can move with that. We do want to be able to prove out a value proposition around the tensioner drives the implant and vice versa, because the reality is that, an interference screw is an interference screw. Cortical buttons are cortical buttons. So, there's a world where we want to be able to show the value, a little bit like Mako's done with total knee replacement and the like. So we've got an ability to do that. We'll have to make some of those decisions down the road, and ultimately we know that a lot of the value that people are going to place on us, at least initially, is going to be around the tool and what that can do for surgeons.
Excellent.
Sean, that's great presentation. I really like the concept. It makes a lot of sense, and it's pretty simple, which are usually the best kind of ideas, right? So, but quick question was, it sounds to me like right now the surgeons are doing this by feel, right? They're pulling it by hand, and now you're kind of giving them a number to it, right? A tension number. Have you dialed in what's the right tension, or is it different, for different populations or even by surgeon? Have you put any thought around that?
Yeah, no, it's probably been my number one asked question, Bill, since first coming across the product about 4 years ago, and then obviously over this last year where I've been in this role. So ultimately, I guess the challenge is in the lab. There's good indications about what the number should be. Hamstrings is anywhere between 70 to 90. Quads are around about 35. Some are thereabouts, and patellas, lower than that, around about 20 newtons. But the reality is, I think because tensioners haven't been overly widely adopted, because often they can be hard to use or inaccurate, there's not great clinical data that then comes on the back of it. But what we know is we're going to be able to give them consistency, and some of the pilot data we've shown is that we're going to, what you see if the max pull as it goes up, and then it drops off very quickly, and then it finds a steady state, and then we'll start to drop off. Whereas ours goes up, stays flat. If you dial it up, it goes up. The relaxation you get is just whether the collagen and the suture relaxes. So we'll be able to give them that. And what we know with the system, and we'll be able to give them some of this in lab data that already exists to give them some guidelines. But ultimately, at the moment, they make decisions based on feel and proprioception and everything. We're going to objectively do it. And the way that the system's set up, they'll be able to do all of their usual stuff, like put the probe in behind the ligament, do the Lockman's test, do all of those sort of things with the tensioner in place. And then when they're happy with that, then they can run at home. And over time, within our system, we'll start to see whether there's a standard or whether there's variability based on patient demographics, graft type, fixation methods, approaches, and the like. So,
yeah, it'd be great data to collect once it gets used, right? That outcomes versus the tension, you kind of see that sweet spot. Would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, any other questions from the panel? Sean, you have a couple questions in the chat, but I will send you those after the call just to respect everyone else's time. If we have no other questions, thanks everyone for joining today. Thank you to our presenters, Rodrigo, Frank, Sean, and our great panel, Chance, Bill, Chris. We really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us. If you have any additional questions, reach out to myself or anyone on our team or the CEOs directly to answer additional questions. We have our next event coming up in April with Bill Rhoda from Runway, along with his partner, Jeff O'Donnell Jr. Go ahead and RSVP. That's on the site today. Hope you have a great night. Thanks, everyone, again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.